February 23, 1945, 10:37 a.m. Private First Class Tadamichi Kuribayashi, 19 years old, crouches in a concrete bunker 400 yards from Mount Suribachi. Through his rifle slot, he watches American Marines advancing up the volcanic ash slope. He's been fighting for 4 days without sleep. His regiment started with 312 men. Now there are 47 left. The Marines keep coming. Tadamichi watches as a Marine with a flamethrower approaches his bunker. He knows what happens next. He's seen it happen to 3 other bunkers this morning. He loads his last rifle grenade. His hands are shaking. Not from fear of dying. He accepted death weeks ago. He's shaking because fighting these Marines is different than anything Japanese commanders prepared him for. Different than fighting Chinese soldiers in Manchuria. Different than fighting British troops in Burma. Different than every assumption Japanese military doctrine was built on. In his pocket, Tadamichi carries a diary. In it, he's written, "The Americans we can handle, but the Marines are demons." This is the story of why Japanese soldiers feared and hated fighting U.S. Marines more than any other unit in World War II. Why Japanese officers called them the Green Devils. Why captured Japanese documents describe Marine tactics as contrary to all logic and reason. And why, by 1945, just hearing that Marines were landing caused some Japanese units to break formation and retreat, something that almost never happened in the Japanese Imperial Army. The 1st Marine Division lands on the beaches, 11,000 men. Most have never seen combat. Some have been Marines for less than 6 months. The Japanese garrison commander, Colonel Kiyonao Ichiki, receives reports of the landing. He reads them carefully. American troops, light infantry, no heavy weapons visible. Probably National Guard or Army Reserves. Ichiki smiles. He fought in China. He knows how American soldiers fight, cautiously, slowly, relying on overwhelming firepower and air support. If you hit them at night before they can dig in, they panic and run. He has 917 elite Japanese troops, veterans of Manchuria, trained in night infiltration and bayonet charges. He decides to attack immediately with a nighttime banzai charge. August 21st, 2 a.m. Ichiki's troops charge across the Tenaru River, screaming, bayonets fixed, expecting the Americans to break and run like Chinese troops did, like British colonial forces did in Malaya. The Marines don't break. They hold the line. Machine guns fire in disciplined, overlapping fields. Rifles crack in controlled volleys. When Japanese soldiers break through the first line, they find another line behind it, then another. At dawn, American light tanks arrive. They chase the retreating Japanese soldiers, crushing them in the sand. Of Ichiki's 917 men, 774 are dead. The Marines lose 44 killed. Colonel Ichiki, humiliated by the defeat, burns his regimental colors and shoots himself. When reports reach Japanese headquarters in Rabaul, senior officers are stunned. How did elite Japanese troops fail so completely? The Americans weren't supposed to fight like this. They weren't supposed to hold ground. They weren't supposed to counterattack at night. These weren't regular American soldiers. These were Marines, and Japanese commanders were about to learn that Marines fought by completely different rules. Here's what Japanese intelligence officers discovered when they analyzed captured Marine equipment and interrogated prisoners. Every single Marine, from private to general, went through the exact same brutal training at either Paris Island or San Diego. 13 weeks of hell, designed to break you down and rebuild you. Army soldiers trained for 8 to 13 weeks depending on their specialty. Marines trained for 13 weeks minimum, and that was just boot camp. Then came advanced infantry training, then unit training. By the time a Marine landed on a Pacific island, he'd trained for combat for 6 to 9 months minimum. But here's the critical difference that Japanese officers noted in their reports. Every Marine was a rifleman first. Cooks, clerks, mechanics, radio men, everyone qualified as a rifleman, everyone could fight. In the Japanese army, support troops were support troops. They weren't expected to fight. If the front line broke, the rear echelon collapsed. In Marine units, there was no rear echelon. A cook could pick up a rifle and hold a defensive position as effectively as an infantry Marine A radio operator could lead an assault if his sergeant was killed. Japanese officers wrote in reports, American Marine units continue fighting effectively even after losing 40 to 50% casualties. This is unprecedented. But what truly confused Japanese commanders was Marine Corps doctrine itself. Marines were specialists in one thing: amphibious assault, taking defended beaches, fighting in jungles, close quarters combat, exactly the conditions of the Pacific War. The Army trained for every possible scenario. Marines trained for one scenario obsessively. Japanese infantry tactics emphasize spiritual strength and aggressive offense, banzai charges, night attacks, individual heroism. The idea that superior Japanese warrior spirit could overcome material disadvantages. Marine tactics emphasize firepower, combined arms, and relentless forward momentum. You don't charge blindly. You suppress the enemy with overwhelming fire, maneuver to flank them, and destroy them systematically. And Marines had weapons Japanese soldiers had nightmares about: flamethrowers. The M2 flamethrower could shoot burning napalm 65 feet. Japanese bunkers designed to withstand artillery and bombs were death traps against flamethrowers. The fire didn't just kill, it consumed all the oxygen in enclosed spaces. Men suffocated even if the flames didn't reach them. Combat engineers with satchel charges and pole charges. They'd approach bunkers, place 20 to 40 pounds of explosives directly against the firing slit, and detonate it. The overpressure alone killed everyone inside. Shotguns. The Marines used Winchester Model 97 trench guns loaded with 00 buckshot for tunnel fighting and close quarters combat. 9.33 caliber pellets per shot, devastating at close range. The Japanese actually protested shotgun use as a war crime. The Americans ignored the protest. In 2003, a Marine Corps historian translated 247 captured Japanese diaries and letters from Pacific battlefields. What he found was striking Japanese soldiers didn't just fear Marines tactically, they hated them psychologically. Here's what Japanese soldiers wrote: "The Marines do not fight with honor. They use flamethrowers and explosives against brave soldiers who stand their ground." Private Takeshi Maeda, killed on Peleliu, September 1944. "We were told Americans value life and fear death. The Marines we fight do not fear death. They advance into machine gun fire without hesitation." Sergeant Yoshio Nakamura, captured on Saipan, July 1944. "The worst are the big Marines, the ones who look like they enjoy fighting. They smile while they kill us." Corporal Hiroshi Tanaka, killed on Tarawa, November 1943. The psychological clash was fundamental. Japanese military culture emphasized death before dishonor. Surrender was shameful. If you were wounded and couldn't fight, the honorable thing was suicide. Marines were trained to take prisoners for intelligence. They'd offer water to wounded Japanese soldiers, medical treatment, safety. To Japanese soldiers raised in Bushido culture, this was incomprehensible. Why would an enemy show mercy? It must be a trick, a trap. So they'd refuse surrender, refuse medical help. Sometimes they'd detonate grenades, killing themselves and anyone nearby. This made Marines furious and deeply suspicious. You offer mercy, and they try to kill you with a hidden grenade. After that happens a few times, Marines stopped offering mercy. The war in the Pacific became brutal in ways the European theater wasn't. No quarter given, no quarter expected. Marines began taking souvenirs from dead Japanese soldiers: flags, swords, sometimes skulls and teeth, acts that would be considered war crimes under any other circumstance. But Japanese soldiers did the same. Captured Marines were tortured, beheaded, mutilated. The Bataan Death March, the Wake Island Massacre, the Burma Railway. It became a cycle of brutality that fed on itself. Each side used the other's atrocities to justify their own. But here's what Japanese commanders noticed. Despite the brutality, Marine units remained disciplined. They followed orders, maintained formation, completed objectives. Japanese units, built on rigid hierarchy and spiritual motivation, often collapsed when their officers were killed or when situations deviated from Doctrine A. Captured Japanese colonel, interrogated after Iwo Jima, said, "Your Marines fight like machines. No matter what we do to them, they keep coming." It's terrifying. As the war progressed, Japanese soldiers learned to recognize when they were fighting Marines versus Army units. Marines used different tactics, different equipment, even different slang on the radio that Japanese intelligence could intercept. Tarawa, November 1943. The 2nd Marine Division assaults Bedio Island, defended by 4,500 Japanese troops in the most heavily fortified position in the Pacific. Japanese Commander Rear Admiral Keiji Shibasaki famously boasts, "1 million men cannot take Tarawa in 100 years. The Marines take it in 76 hours. Of 4,500 Japanese defenders, only 17 are captured. The rest fight to the death." Marine casualties: 1,009 killed, 2,101 wounded, the highest casualty rate of any Marine operation in the Pacific. Saipan, June 1944, the largest Banzai charge of the Pacific War. Over 4,000 Japanese soldiers charge Marine positions in a desperate last attack the Marines hold. By morning, 4,311 Japanese soldiers lie dead in front of Marine positions. Iwo Jima, February 1945, the bloodiest battle in Marine Corps history. 3 Marine divisions assault an island 8 square miles in size, defended by 21,000 Japanese troops in 11 miles of underground tunnels. The Japanese commander, General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, studies Marine tactics carefully. He abandons Banzai charges as suicidal. Instead, he orders a defense in depth, make the Marines pay for every yard, inflict maximum casualties. It works. The Marines take 36 days to secure the island. 6,821 Marines killed, 19,217 wounded, nearly 30% casualties. Of 21,000 Japanese defenders, only 216 are captured alive. Okinawa, April 1945. The last battle, the worst battle. 82 days of fighting, 12,520 Americans killed, 38,000 wounded, over 100,000 Japanese soldiers killed. And again, Marines are at the forefront of the fighting. Again, Japanese soldiers write in diaries about how much they hate fighting these particular Americans. When Japan finally surrenders in August 1945, it's partly because the leadership knows what's coming next, the invasion of mainland Japan, and they know which American units will land first. The Marines. Casualty estimates for Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of Japan, ranged from 400,000 to over 1 million American casualties. Japanese casualties were projected at 5 to 10 million military and civilian deaths. The atomic bombs prevented that invasion, but Japanese military leaders later admitted they feared the Marines more than they feared the bombs. Bombs were impersonal. Marines were personal. They came to your island and didn't leave until you were dead or captured.